Welcome to the Working Woman Report. I'm Allison Hawes. We have a fascinating episode today where we take a look at the initiatives of two techie entrepreneurs whose project's main aim is to empower women in tech. Pooja, Chandrashekar, a Harvard University student, will tell us how, in order to encourage more women to get into computer science and technology, she's getting girls involved at an early age. But up first, we're talking with Reiss about her revolutionary app called Just Not Sorry, designed specifically for professional women. Its objective? To correct subjugation on email communications in the workplace. It's no secret that men and women lead and communicate in different ways. Some studies suggest our brains are wired differently, and as a result, men and women may offer contrasting reactions to the same event. Some experts, however, contend that when it comes to success, men tend to point inward, taking credit for themselves, while women point outward, attributing credit to others. And when it comes to failure, studies show men are more apt to blame others, whereas women usually point inward and blame themselves. So why is this the case? Some experts say these opposite approaches seem to be absorbed early on in life, when traditionally boys play games centered around conflict and competition, like sports or fighting with G.I. Joes. With these games, the boys learn how to win and lose, take risks, and achieve goals. In contrast, girls often play games centered on relationships, getting along and avoiding conflict, playing with dolls at tea parties or jumping rope, where they learn how to negotiate and to do what's fair for everyone with an even distribution of power. So the question is, do these early experiences affect us later on in life? Reiss has plenty to say on the subject and offers up at least one solution to improve gender dynamics in the workplace. Well, Tammy, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I cannot wait to hear about this app because I think it's an app that I can actually use. So tell me.
100%.
Tell me all about it.
So Just Not Sorry is a Gmail plugin that's free. And after you download it, as you're typing an email, anytime you use one of what we call the trigger words, it underlines it as if it's spell checking it, and then it tells you why you probably shouldn't use that word. So the words that we underline are things like just and sorry and I think and sort of. These are words that when you put into your email, they undermine your message. They make you come off as less confident than you could if they were taken out. And of course you can use these words, because if you want to say, I just heard your mother died, I'm so sorry. We don't want you to stop using the words. We want you to be more aware and more conscious of your choice of words, especially when writing business emails.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that when we're sending these business emails, a lot of women, you do write, just wanted to touch base, just wanted to see if. Why are we doing that?
It's a social norm. It's a verbal tick that we've been trained in, that if we come off as slightly more passive, then it's a social lubricant is what they're called, but they've become overused. It's not that you shouldn't use social lubricants to get your way, but you should be aware of when you're using them and when you're not. Because both of you overuse them, they're not going to have value when you do it. But also, you're using them in cases where you might have authority and you're giving away your power to this other person and saying, I'm just checking in, sorry to interrupt your day, that thing that was due yesterday I still haven't seen, how's it coming? Doesn't make any sense. So
what's your advice to women to be more authoritative when in the workplace, when sending emails?
Think about a power situation and whether or not you're giving away your power. Something that is really common is just thinking about the nature of, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late, right? How often do we run late for a meeting? So sorry, I'm late. If you flip that into, thank you so much for being patient, or thank you so much for waiting for me, you keep yourselves on a level playing field, if not potentially you even being at a higher playing field, which is that this person was willing to wait for you, as opposed to sorry, I'm late, brings you into this, I'm already apologizing. What can I do to regain my social capital with you that I've lost because I was late? So that situation just plays out again and again and again with everything that we do. And if you think about, am I giving away my power with my words? Do I want to do that? I think that it'll help people start thinking about how to keep a level playing field with the people they're working with.
Where'd this come from within you? What sparked this?
It got sparked by a group of women I was hanging out with who were talking about the, why am I blanking? Amy Schumer. I was like, comedian, female, super fantabulous. Amy Schumer had this video of 4 women on a panel saying sorry and not being able to actually talk, and they were all PhDs, et cetera. And there was this group of women, female startup founders, executives in their business, high-powered women, who were talking about this and how true it was, and how they wanted to stop using these words in their everyday lives. And people were saying, yeah, I'm working on not saying sorry. And
what are the words, just so we're clear?
Oh, it's a list of 13 phrases. So just, sorry, actually, I think, I feel, I believe, does this make sense, actually, trying, and a few other ones. Sort of is in there.
Yeah.
But they're all the things that if someone says it to you, you don't have confidence in what they're saying. And so the question is if you are confident in what you are trying to communicate, why would you give it a qualifier? Why would you try to undermine your message and say to somebody else, does this make sense? No, it made sense. I said it. I thought about it. I researched it. It makes sense. So why would I ever ask you to validate that?
So you saw this Amy Schumer skit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And women were talking about this, and there are a few other Gmail apps that do similar things, like Grammarly, which corrects all of your grammar, and something called Crystal Knows, which helps you know who your audience is for sales emails. And I said to a friend of mine who's a CEO of a company called Hitlist, I said, hey, Jillian, what if I just highlighted the word sorry in every one of your emails? What would you do with that? And she said, that was brilliant. That would be awesome. Why don't you build that? And we talked to the group of women, and everyone was excited about the idea. There was even a woman there who was willing to give us free PR for the idea. And so we built it. And in under a week, we had a functional product. We iterated on it. And nowadays, I get to talk a lot about the software side of it, which is like how we use Lean and Agile to build something really successful, which is what I do in my everyday life, which is teaching people about product development. And my friend Emma Sinclair, who's a CEO who's exited and IPO'd out of London, came up with this idea of turning it into a New Year's resolution. So we launched almost a year ago on December 28th, and it was a New Year's resolution to change the way you spoke and change the way you emailed in the year 2016. And I was like, I'm gonna eliminate Justin Sorry from my emails in 2016. And we created this movement, and we were covered in 150 newspapers, and we are now in 225 countries, and there are over 250,000 people using this application to help them be more mindful and more aware of their word choice in emails. And word choice in emails is much more important than we think about, because tone and body language are unavailable to us when you're just writing an email. So it's the words on the screen, and they are the only vehicle for you to communicate. So you have to be very careful with the words you choose.
What has been the reaction from people around the world? How did you know that you were making an impact?
We had 10,000 downloads within 2 days. Slate covered us, the Today Show covered us twice. Without our knowledge, we didn't have a real PR person working on this. Kara just sent out a press release, and it worked. And so I think when Slate emailed us, or when the BBC called me at 7 o'clock in the morning from Scotland, those were the moments where we said we're really onto something. And when people started contributing to open source with words that they wanted to use, that was really fantastic. And the response in general, like 95% has been positive. Occasionally there's a journalist who says, you're policing women's speech, and we're not. We're trying to help people be more aware so they can choose. And anybody who's a user will get emails, will get tweets, will get stories come in about not only does it change the way they're writing their emails, but how it's making them more conscious of their word choice when texting, when speaking, that they'll catch themselves more often, and that the application itself is catching them less often because they are using the words less often.
Coming up after the break, we explore reasons why some women often belittle themselves in social or professional environments. Welcome back to the Working Woman Report. I'm Allison Hans. We continue our conversation with Tami Reiss on what can be done to help women better promote themselves. Why is it that we as women subjugate ourselves or make ourselves smaller, even on something as simple as an email?
Yeah,
it seems crazy.
It seems crazy to me too, and it's a social norm. We're taught not to boast for ourselves. When I was in high school, I had a poster up on my wall which said, "It is far better when others discover your good qualities without your help." Because I had a little bit too much hubris. And it was good to tone me down, but that's what so many women have been taught, that don't raise your hand in class, don't self-promote, because people will look down on you as boastful, which is why we're now coming up with strategies as to how you can have an ally that boasts on your behalf. Jessica and I were on this panel today, and she wrote Feminist Fight Club, and one of the strategies she talks about is having a boast bitch, which is someone who's gonna boast on your behalf. And the women of the Obama administration have talked about similar things. And so given those scenarios, we've all learned not to self-promote and not to come off too strong. But the question is have we overcorrected? Have we swung the pendulum too far to the point that we have become apologetic and submissive and giving away our power when we should never be doing that?
So once again, tell us the exact name of the app, where people can find it.
Sure, it's called Just Not Sorry. And if you go to justnotsorry.com or you type in Just Not Sorry to Google, it will pop up and you can download it from the Chrome store.
Wonderful. Well, Tami, thank you so much for joining us today.
People who watch the program download it. It's free. I don't make any money off of this. It's really just my present to the world so that more women can be more successful in workplaces.
Tami, thank you so much for the app, for this gift to women, and thank you so much for being here today. It really was a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's a truly practical app that I'm actually going to download as soon as I get a chance. Designed by women for women. Certainly a very generous gift from Tami to the female community around the world. But she didn't stop with the app. She open sourced the code so that other people could build similar tools or add functionality to Just Not Sorry. And to keep up the good work and continue motivating ladies into new technologies. Pooja Chandrashekar set up a project that encourages girls into the world of computer science. This young visionary knows women have a lot to offer as coders and developers, and she aims to motivate them to pursue a career in one of the fastest growing industries in the world. Pooja, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So how'd you get out of school today?
So we're actually on reading week right now,
okay.
We don't have classes, but I did turn in a final just before coming here.
Okay, so, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, you are a student at
Yes.
Harvard University, but you are no ordinary student.
Oh, thank you.
Please tell me about what you're working on.
Yeah, of course. So the biggest thing that I'm working on is an organization called Project CS Girls. So for many years now, I've been very passionate about encouraging girls in tech, particularly encouraging middle school girls to pursue computer science and technology. So Project CS Girls is all about achieving that goal and inspiring middle school girls in CS.
So what does the program exactly do?
Yeah, sure. So essentially it's for girls in 6th to 8th grade. It's a national program, and we do two major programs. So the first is we run computer science workshops around the country, and the second is we run a national computer science competition for middle school girls. So the competition is essentially all about tech for a social impact. So we try to challenge girls, like, how can you change the world using technology? So essentially they have to pick a social problem in their communities, affecting those around them or affecting themselves, and then use technology in some way to develop a solution to that problem.
And you're a big promoter of girls in tech.
Yes.
Because this is something that you've been doing since you were how old?
In high school, so my freshman year of high school.
How did you get into technology? Because it's lacking of, with girls and women, and it's such an issue.
Yeah, of course. So I think for me personally, the biggest thing was that both of my parents are engineers.
Okay, that would
So
that helps you.
Yeah, of course. And then my mom, being a female engineer, was always a really big inspiration for me growing up. So that I always had that. I was very lucky to grow up in that kind of environment. And then I was even more lucky to go to a middle school that had mandatory computer science classes.
Mandatory?
Yeah.
Okay.
So which I think is something that should be implemented nationwide. So yeah, we had mandatory computer science classes, and then I went to a high school that was very focused on science and tech, but still had this huge problem of lacking girls in tech, and that experience was what encouraged me to found Project CS Girls.
What is it that is holding girls and or women back from really leading the way in technology?
Yeah. So there are a couple of factors. Some of the biggest ones are, first of all, the lack of female role models. So for example, if you Google computer scientist, you're not going to see many women on the Google images that pop up. So it's this big lack of, it's a lot of negative stereotypes surrounding the field. There's also not that much emphasis in showcasing the women who are in tech as being in tech. So if you think of computer scientists, you'll probably think of like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, but you won't necessarily think of the amazing women in tech like Tracy Chow or Sheryl Sandberg, etc. So there needs to be a lot more done to encourage representation of these women in CS fields. And then there's also, like I said before, this negative stereotyping that begins really during elementary and middle school. So there's this pinkifying of CS when you're thinking of can we encourage girls in tech, and so that's a big problem as well.
I think sometimes maybe girls can be a little intimidated.
Yes.
How do you get past that?
Yeah. So the fact that girls are intimidated really stems from not being exposed to it early on. So for me, what made me stay in CS despite the statistics or not seeing enough girls in my class was the fact that I had a background in CS from my middle school going into high school. So that really gave me, the confidence to stay in this field. So what we're doing as part of Project CS Girls is in middle school, showing them that you can do this, and then there's also giving them access to this community of other girls in tech just like them who are passionate about solving social problems. And our biggest push is tech for social impact, and the reason that's a big push is because research has shown, and we've also noticed, that girls really tend to gravitate towards careers or projects where they can make a difference. And often girls don't perceive computer science as being a field which they can use to make a difference. So that's why we're showing them that this is a field where you can really have tangible impact.
Next in the program, as a result of taking part in Project CS Girls, an incredible 8-year-old girl designed a multifunctional app that helped people with Alzheimer's. Find out more after the break. Welcome back to the Working Woman Report. I'm Allison Hans. We now look at how Pooja managed to set up, grow, and fund her project to be able to reach thousands of girls each year. So funding. Yeah. How are you doing with funding? Where are you getting the funding from? How did that begin?
Yeah, so it's all corporate sponsorship. So Project CS Girls started 4 years ago. That year we had just we were a regional program in the Maryland, Washington, DC, and Virginia area. And we just had 3 corporate sponsors then, like local companies in DC. Now we're funded by many major corporate sponsors. For example, Yahoo is our biggest sponsor, Symantec, Northrop Grumman, etc. Yeah.
And how many girls are involved at this point?
Yeah. So just this past year, we reached 1,500 middle school girls in 35 states.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So what's your hope for the program, or what's up next for you? Not that you're not doing anything these days.
I guess for the biggest thing is just to keep growing the number of girls who participate in our programs, essentially. So our goal each year is to double the number of girls who are involved. So we do that, first of all, by encouraging more participation in our competition and also hosting more workshops around the country. So last year we hosted around 15, and this year we're hoping to host workshops in 30 states.
What's the example of someone who's won one of these competitions, what they've created,
the
impact that they've had?
So our winner from this past year, she was from New York, and I believe she was an 8th grader, I want to say. But the app she created was an Alzheimer's awareness app, an app to help Alzheimer's patients, essentially. So it took into account a lot of different components. For example, Alzheimer's patients have a lot of difficulty remembering faces or associating faces to names. So she took an app, she synced the phone contacts book with images so that the patient could remember. Also had medication reminders, a lot of like grocery shopping lists. And so she put a lot of things into one. She was actually recently named to New York's Crane's 20 Under 20.
And this is an 8th
and she's in middle school.
grader.
Yeah, so that's really incredible.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's really, what does someone do in 8th grade when they've created an app like that?
So I believe she's trying to patent it, first of all, and then also trying to, she has it built and everything, so she wants to like put it on the App Store and start giving it to patients, because it's not something that would require like FDA approval or something. It's just something that can be directly handed to patients and can start making an impact right now.
What would your advice be to a woman or a young woman who wants to start coding or learning how to code?
Yeah.
I mean, there are these, I think there's all these kind of names thrown around, the different coding, and it makes people nervous.
Yeah.
And
jargon is a really big thing that turns a lot of girls away. I think my biggest advice would just be to seek out female-based programs if you're kind of hesitant about going into the field just because of the lack of girls. There are a lot of really awesome women in tech programs that you can get involved with. So for example, if you're in middle school, like Project Skills Girls would be great. If you're in high school, Girls Who Code. There's also, if you're past high school, there's Girl Develop It, Women Who Code. So there are all these women in tech groups that offer these very supportive environments for girls and women in tech. It doesn't matter what age you're coming in at, and it's just like this great community of women that'll get together every week and just learn how to code, work on great projects together. So that's one way to do it. There's also a lot of online resources you can use, a lot of online tutorials that'll walk you through the basics of coding.
what would be some of those online tutorials?
Yeah, sure. So Khan Academy has a bunch. Code.org has a ton. Let's see, Code Academy has a lot of walkthrough tutorials. So those are probably usually my top 3 go-to. There's also Made with Code. Made with Code is more inclined for girls who are in a younger age, like maybe middle school, high school, but it's great. I love it.
What's your goal, your hope for the future?
For myself or for the art?
For yourself.
For myself, okay. So I personally am very interested in the intersection of healthcare and technology. So my dream would be to pursue a career at the intersection of healthcare, technology, and business.
Well, I think you've made a great start, and
Thank you.
it was truly an honor to meet you today.
Thank you so
I really
much.
enjoyed speaking with you,
Thank you.
and keep going
Thank
with
you
these
so much.
programs. I think it's absolutely amazing. You're
Thank you.
terrific. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
With only 25% of technical jobs in the marketplace being held by women and a mere 12% of computer science graduates being women, we hope Pooja's initiative will continue to grow and reach as many girls in the country as possible. We look forward to more apps and software programs from female developers that make all of our lives a little bit easier. For more information on these and other tech projects, be sure to visit our website, workingwomanreport.com. You can always reach us on social media, on Twitter and Facebook. Of course, tune in next time for more fantastic stories on our amazing women. Who knows? Maybe you're next. See you then.